Hi, this is a video showing the moves for a 6-loop double braid. I've started the braid already with, and I'm beginning, let's put these back, I'm beginning it with a loop at the top of the braid formed by divided braiding, and that will be the first type of move I will show for this braid. So this, in the way I'm going to start, will demonstrate how to make a divided double weave braid, upper layer separated from the lower layer, and either in this video or in a separate one, if I don't have enough time, I'll show how to make the unified braid with all the transfers turned. Okay, so you start with 3 loops on each hand, and there will be 4 loop transfers per cycle, followed by a loop exchange move. So really 5 moves to think about and remember. The operator finger will be the index finger of the opposite hand. So I'm going to begin on my left with my left hand's loops. These will be the loops will essentially be performing the moves of a 3-loop, square braid. So the first move is through the C loop, and then I will take the B loop. I will always be taking the B loop in all of my double braids. That's the loop that will be on the B finger, in all of the double braids of this type, with a sort of an M-shaped fell, like a doubled A-fell braid. So I will be taking it without a turn, so I pull the loop from within the loop. Let's see if that can show better. From within the loop, rather than from below it or above it. From within the loop, I take the loop and bring it through the C loop, releasing it, and then I immediately shift the C loop up and place the taken loop onto the C finger. That's the first loop transfer. I don't need to tighten yet. That will be at the end of the whole cycle. For the second loop transfer, the new B loop is going to go through the A loop in this direction, and to accomplish that, I reach behind the A loop, so bring the top shank forward just to get it out of the way, really, and then put my index finger into the B loop and lift it through with no turn, releasing, and then immediately, let's see if I can show that better, immediately the shadows are not cooperating. Immediately the B finger walks into the A loop and shifts it downward, and then I can place the transferred loop onto the A finger. There we go. So that's the second loop transfer. Now I'm ready to do the same thing on the other side. The operator finger goes through the C loop, takes the B loop without a turn, releasing and shifting the C loop upward in order to place the transferred loop onto the C finger. Third transfer done. Now for the fourth transfer, this is a little unintuitive, I suppose, but it really is an easy way to accomplish the move. You must go from behind the loop like that to take it. I used to sometimes turn my hand and go into the loop this way. It's the same movement, and take the loop from behind, going into it from behind. This is an alternative way to do it. In that case, you would release, walk your finger, the B finger, into the A loop, and then place or walk into the transferred loop, again from that same direction from behind. I think that's a bit confusing, actually, to teach, so I'm now going to undo that last move. If you're watching, you don't need to do this. I think it's easier for teaching. I've found it easier, and this is how I usually do the move myself. Oops, sorry, undoing it again. Is to go leave the hand in this orientation. Go behind the loop, pull the top shank out of the way, and then just lift from this direction. Lift the B loop up and through the A loop. Shift, place it onto the taken loop onto the A finger. Now my 4 transfers are done. Those were if this had been made in the old traditional way that double braids were, and probably are still, definitely are made by two braiders. One braider on the left would have been holding these 3 loops. One braider on the right would have been holding these 3 loops, both using their 2 hands, and doing the moves for a square braid, after which they would then need to connect their braid, their 2 braids, into one, and they would exchange their adjoining index finger loops. Here, I will exchange these 2 loops. Those would have been held by the adjoining index finger loops of 2 braiders, 2 cooperating braiders. It's actually kind of easier, I think, to do it as a solo braider. You simply place the left C-loop onto the right C-loop onto the left finger. This is how I do it. You could do it the opposite direction, but I recommend only, I stick with this direction all the time, just so that I don't get confused. Then lifting the left loop over it. That has effectively linked the 2 sub-braids, and now I can tighten all the loops in one movement, like this. This is tightening them all. I don't need to do an individual tightening for all the loop transfers. I tighten a few times, and I keep my eyes, I sort of quality control, make sure that all the upper, I'm watching, I don't have to lift to see this, but I could, watching to make sure that all the upper shanks are going to the upper the upper layer of this divided braid, and the lowers are going to the lower layer. I haven't made a mistake and turned any of the loops accidentally. And let's do a few more moves, and then I'll switch to taking the transfers with a turn. So, when I braid, I always have a mantra, and usually it's as to whether I'm turning a loop or not. I mean, here I've only shown the straight or unturned or open. It has many. Taking it without a turn is referred to as unreversed. Masako Kinoshita and Noemi Spicer refer to it as open. I just usually say straight. I've only shown this way. However, once you learn both ways, you really have to keep it straight within a braid which you're doing. So I'm going to say straight, because I'm reminding myself to do it straight without a turn. Straight, shift, place. Second transfer. Straight, shift, place. Third transfer. Straight, shift, place. Fourth transfer. Straight, shift, place, exchange. Do not forget this. It's very important. And tighten. Next cycle. Straight, shift, place. Straight, shift, place. Straight, shift, place. Straight, shift, place, exchange, and tighten. One more cycle. Straight, shift, place. Straight, shift, place. Straight, shift, place. Straight, shift, place, and exchange. Tighten. Okay, now I will show these moves with all the transfers turned. This will result in joining up the upper and lower layer of this divided double weave braid into one cohesive braid, and it will have one of many possible shapes for a double braid. It will have a what I call a solid rectangle shape, two square braids next to each other. Many other shapes are possible: hollow, completely open and flat, etc., done by different combinations of turned and straight transfers, or reversed and unreversed, or open and crossed, depending on what your background and which terms you're familiar with. This will be the exact opposite of the braid we just did in terms of the transfers. Everyone will be turned, and I will say that to remind myself as I do them. I will be turning in. There's two ways to turn, and you must stick with one way within a braid. Two directions. I will be turning from above. This will not look like from above for the second and fourth transfers, but I call it that because I don't know what else to call it. The two possibilities of turning are from above or from below, but the other turns on this side must counter that. We don't think about that. You don't have to think about that when you do a square braid. You just are always taking from the top for a turn from above. But on the left side, that will be a clockwise turn, and on the right side, that will be a counterclockwise turn. When you're doing this braid a square braid all in one hand, you have to remember that, even though it's not intuitive, and counter the turns. Okay, not enough. Here we go. So now for turning all the transfers, I'm going to go through the C loop and then rise above the B loop and take it from above, which will give it a half turn in a clockwise direction, releasing, shift, place. Now, for the second transfer, this will seem very odd, but the turn from above will actually have, since the first turn went this way, clockwise, the second turn, to match it, to counter it, has to come, the loop must turn the other way. It's actually not very easy to reach way down here and it's hard to get it off the finger to turn it that way, and I usually turn it in a much easier way, but it starts off just like a straight, just like an unreversed or open transfer. So here comes the second transfer. I reach behind, I pull it, just as before, pull the top of the A loop out of the way, reach in and lift the B loop as for an open transfer, shift, and then turn it on my finger as I put it onto the A finger. In fact, it's a cooperative thing. I slightly turn it, the A finger dips down into it. This loop will receive a half turn in a counter direction as it goes onto the A finger. So I do call it this is a turn from above because it counters the other turn. Just nominally, it's a turn from above. If I were doing the loop movements with an opposite turn, I would call it a turn from below. So those transfers are done. Now on the other hand, I will do a mirror image. So reminding myself to do a turn transfer, I say turn, shift, place, to behind, lifting through, turn, shift, place. You can see how that loop, and you can check, which I often have to do, check and make sure that the loop got a turn. It's visible on the finger. And exchange. Tighten. It's good. Since I'm checking now, since I'm joining the upper and lower divided braid, I check to make sure they're joining evenly, and I see I do need to kind of shift that a bit. I want the header cord to be exactly in the middle. I want them to match very well, or there'll be some loose areas. We'll check that again in another cycle or two. Let's tighten again. Okay, next transfer. I'm turning now, and I'm saying that. That's part of my mantra, to remind myself to do it. It's very common that I forget if I'm not paying attention, and which is also why it's good to keep your eye on the fell of the braid and make sure that the loops look as if they did get a turn if they needed to. Okay, so next cycle, turn, shift, place, turn, shift, and place. Turn, shift, place. Turn, shift, place. You can see how that got a turn, and exchange. Tighten. Check again. Still think it needs a little recentering there. I'll tighten again. Tighten fairly firmly when you're first joining up the divided braid into a cohesive one. Next cycle, turn, shift, place, turn, shift, place. Let me wait a minute for you to catch up. I don't want to go too fast. Turn, shift, place, turn, shift, place, and exchange. Tighten. Next cycle. Turn, shift, place, turn, shift, place, turn, shift, place. Turn, shift, place, and exchange. Tighten. Let's see how that join is coming. Excuse me, I do have a cold. I'll probably have to cough a bit and clear my throat in an unseemly way throughout this. So here's the divided portion. There's, when you're fussing with the braid later, you'll want to open up it usually braids a bit curved into a C shape or a square shape, but I'm not gonna worry about that too much now. And then here is the part where it joins up into a rectangular, what I call a rectangular braid. All the transfers are turned. The upper layer and lower layer are very interconnected, and it braids on it's rectangular with the wider surface facing to and away from you. Later, when you do the hollow braid, the rectangular, it usually braids with its wide surface on the opposite axis, or a rotated axis. Okay, let's get this back. Do one more. Through. Okay, turn, shift, place. Turn, shift, place. Might do that in a slightly different order. Okay, turn, shift, place. Or the shift and the turn sort of happen simultaneously. Turn, shift, place, and exchange. Tighten. Next cycle. Turn, shift, turn, shift, place, turn, shift, place, turn, shift, place, and exchange. Tighten. Next cycle, turn, shift, place, turn, shift, place, turn, shift, place, turn, shift, place, exchange. Be sure to include the exchange move, tighten, in your mantra. At least for me, that was something I often forgot. If you forget to make the exchange and you keep braiding, after the next cycle, when you try to tighten, it will be hard to tighten. There will be a kind of an awkwardness to it. That usually means you forgot to do the exchange. Okay, that's it for this video. I'll see if I need to make a second one, perhaps to show some more things about this. But for now, let's just take a little quick peek at the braid. I used a lot of bright colors, which aren't really making a pattern. It's just a jumble of colors. If I had used fewer colors and had them grouped in darks and lights, you would see a more interesting pattern. But here is the rectangular braid. I plump it together to kind of fill out. There's one of the wide sides, narrow side, the reverse side. And this is a beautiful, strong braid. It has so many possibilities of color patterns. It's a great braid. And thanks for watching.